Welcome to the Breaking 90 podcast, where we talk about all things sustainable fat loss. We take people on 90-day journeys to creating fat loss forever. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy the episode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Breaking 90 podcast. I'm your host, Jerrika Rydell, with my amazing co-host, Kelly Sarlo, and we're two of the coaches of Breaking 90 Fitness. Thanks for listening, guys, and welcome, Kelly.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing really well. Just came off holidays, so I feel, although I was just complaining about Beckett teething, I still feel very refreshed. So yeah, it's been nice, just camping and baseball, all the things we love. So
nice.
No complaints.
Fair. I'm happy for you.
I have no crazy stories, at least for once, so that's good.
Yeah, no one wants crazy stories when you've got a baby.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
so
fair.
It's actually been pretty calm, so no complaining.
Knock on wood. Good for you.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that right now. Perfect.
What do you have for us today?
Okay, so I want to I'm sure we've talked about something like this in the last 2 years or so, but it's been a while. I want to talk a bit about time management. The reason I'm bringing this up is time of year, of course, getting back to routine for a lot of our moms and parents listening. I don't necessarily have a direction. I have some tips and stuff I'd love to throw in, but I'd love your perspective on just kind of maybe, after the chaos, we talked a bit about getting back to routine. So in previous podcasts, so I don't necessarily want to take it that direction, but just maybe some tips and tricks and just, how to could be scheduling or priorities or non-negotiables. I don't know where you want to take it, but I don't know. I thought you'd bring a cool perspective to time management with this time of year.
Thanks. I love it. I'm always happy to talk about time management, as nerdy as that sounds.
And it's been a long time, and I think our viewers would really benefit from it.
Thank you. That's wonderful. One of the first things that comes to mind is being single task focused. And I think for a lot of individuals, they think about time management and they think the schedule has to be perfect, or they have to pare things down, or they have to make a lot of changes. And I think that in and of itself can be really overwhelming, because there's a whole big question of how do I do all of those things? If we can put those things aside for a minute and know that we can get to it and that we can do those more efficiently, for sure, we can kind of take down the overwhelm, go back to one of our principles, which is simplicity over complexity, and just start by staying single task focused, which means that you're not taking your attention and fractaling it everywhere, right? So if you're trying to, talk to someone on a meeting and they're talking quite a bit, and so you're doing your banking in the background and you're also trying to write your list for your groceries in the lulls of the conversation, then we're being pulled in a bunch of different directions and we're never really fully present to any one of those things. And while we might think, wow, I was super productive, I got a grocery list done and I did my banking at the same time, what you'll start to notice is you'll make mistakes or you'll forget things in each of the tasks that you're trying to multitask, right? And so we end up spending more time double checking our work or more time ruminating over what might I have forgotten, because we're not fully present to what it is we're actually ever really doing.
I hit home. I think that's going to hit home for a lot of moms.
Yeah. And I'm not talking about juggling, rocking your kid on your hip and
sure.
Stirring the stuff on the stove. You can multitask certain things in that kind of way.
Absolutely.
But when a certain kind of task takes a mental load from you, right?
Yeah.
Then we start having to attune a little bit better instead of making or putting our attention in multiple places at once. And I think that really takes down our anxiety. It really takes down our stress, which we might not realize that we have. And then it snowballs, right? Because if we're trying to multitask, driving up our sense of urgency and our anxiety, then as we start to have to tackle the things on our to-do lists, we're consequently not time managing well because we're trying to manage our own feelings about what we're doing.
Yeah. I feel like we're having a therapy session and I needed to hear that.
Okay. Would you like to ask questions?
No, I thought it would be funny to make a
Love that.
comment because I'm like, wow, like, I've got 3 sticky notes here and they're all titled something different. And then, your brain thinks about something else and writes it down. And that hits home. So that's awesome. Great
Yeah.
start.
Cool. Thank you. And I'll say too, like, it's not always possible. I don't want people to feel shame the second that a thought pops into their head while they're doing something. And they're like, should I
Right.
write that down? Should I not? She said, don't multitask. If you have a thought come in and you have a pad of paper and pen that you can just kind of brain dump in that moment, that's great. But shifting so many times in a day where you're trying to accomplish too much is a very different intention than just jotting down something that came to your mind, right?
Okay. So then where do you go from here? Like, what would be the next steps in terms of like recommendation?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I'll always recommend is evaluating your priorities. Because oftentimes the task or time management as a general idea, it's not really that we suck at getting things done in a timely manner. That's not really the thing that we're struggling with. It's actually figuring out the plotting of when to get things done or guesstimating how long they're going to take.
Fair. Yeah.
That fair?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people underestimate how long a process really is going to take. They're like, "Oh, yeah, it'll take 5 minutes," and it ends up taking 10. It's not that you're sucking at the process itself. Mind you, we beat ourselves up about that because we had unrealistic expectations in the first place, right? So if I think, "Oh, I can squeeze in another errand before I have to get to that, that gathering this evening," and all of a sudden I'm arriving 30 minutes late, and we beat ourselves up of like, "Oh, I didn't, how come I didn't, manage that better?" Well, we probably didn't estimate the time very well in the first place. It probably wasn't your execution. Make sense?
Exactly. Yep. Been there.
Unless you are someone who tries to, to squeeze in 8 things in one little trip and you're like unrealistic about what you're actually trying to do.
Completely.
Um, yeah, that's a different situation. So to go back to your question, evaluating your priorities, right? So what
Right.
truly is the most important thing to get done in a day, in a week, in a month? We can look at all of these things separately. So, for example, if we look at the month of August and what we have left of it, or the month of September, let's say, and we think, okay, the most important things to get done are maybe the tires getting checked, something for the household, and back to school shopping for the kids, we can plot out where that belongs and, when we want to get that done. And I would say, too, like a lot of people need to give themselves a bigger buffer. This is kind of going to be one of those things that I'm sure people will turn their nose up at. The buffer is great, and some people know, "Oh, well, if I'm aware of the buffer, I will stretch it and procrastinate it until the very last minute." It blends in with a lot of the other things that we've talked about with Breaking 90 Fitness about eating the frog. So if the priority really is the back to school shopping and you schedule it for, a Thursday night because you don't want to be on the Saturday crowd, don't procrastinate that Thursday night. Eat the frog, get the thing done that you know is going to weigh over or kind of hang over your head so that you actually can move forward with the other things that might not be as big a priority, right?
Yeah.
But it alleviates that anxiety when we can knock that big thing off the list first.
But then you're saying you have the buffer in case something maybe that's a
Yeah,
higher priority comes into play. Right. Yeah.
totally. Your kid gets
Right.
sick or you're carless that
Yeah.
evening and you're like, I didn't plan for this because life happens, right? But it's not a you time management thing at that point. It's life happening and we can just simply adjust.
Love it.
Yeah. Any
I
thoughts?
Yeah, well, this might be, I don't know if it's off topic, but something that makes me think about our clients and people we maybe in sales calls, but it's that I don't have time for XYZ mentality. And I think this kind of plays into the time management conversation. But if we can touch on maybe the mindset component of the clients or members that come in with that mentality, and then it's almost like a paralysis where then nothing gets done, right? It's like I don't have time for the workout posted. I don't have time for to meal prep. It's like, well, you do, but I think that this falls into this conversation quite well.
Yeah, I think, okay, I love questions. You know this. So when someone makes a statement like, I don't have time, I love to flip it and ask, where could I find the time? Right? Because more often than not, when we make the statement, I don't have time, you might be correct. In a day, you might be go, 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 and you're constantly doing something. I'm not going to argue that with you. If you looked at your schedule and said, where might I be able to find that time? You might actually now have a great lead, right? That question is leading you to say, oh, when I scrolled through my phone and sat on the toilet for an extra 10 minutes watching reels, I could have done something with that. When I, blanked out while I was watching or folding the laundry and ended up watching a TV show, there's an opportunity right there. When I'm going to throw this out there. Some maybe parents won't like this. When I drop my kids off at their activities, if they're age appropriate, old enough, maybe I could be getting something done there and I don't have to stay and watch every single thing that they do. I think society has kind of leaned in a very hard direction of where parents weren't present before in earlier generations. Now we're present for absolutely everything. And it's like, if I'm not present all the time, my kid isn't getting enough from me. You can be an independent individual while your kid is off socializing, learning authority from other people. You can time manage yourself in some of those moments where we think I have to be 100% present for them.
Huge reminder. Like, awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So, if they have 4 activities in a week and you're present to watch 3 of them, great. You've freed up one time through the week that you can do something for yourself, like you mentioned, whether that's prep, your healthy grocery shopping, your, walk around the block, whatever it needs to be. So the question of where might I be able to find the time is helpful, because it also leads us to some beautiful answers that we might not have thought about, where maybe if I walk up to my partner and say, hey, if you supervised this, I'd like to be able to go and get this done. Could we collaborate as a team? Now we're having different conversations, right? But if all we do is look at the schedule of what we are already over responsible for, then we don't necessarily think that we have the option to rearrange what we're already doing, right? So
Yes.
it's seeing options that we don't necessarily know are there.
And exactly, you talked earlier about like the schedule and finding those pockets. Well, it could just be a matter of, like you said, rearranging and looking at the day from a different point of view. If you have that person, or if you have the option to not attend that event. No, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful, because I think a lot of people are like, well, I'm not waking up an hour earlier. Okay, don't. If you know that that's not your jam or that you won't be functional at that time, don't do it. No one's asking you to do it. We could find plenty of other opportunities throughout your day so that you can time manage the entire day better, right? And I mentioned too, like, we can look at the month and figure out what needs to get done. We can look at the week and figure out what needs to get done and kind of back things up from there to know what is important today, right? So many of our members will say to us, I have a workout on my agenda today. I'm going to move it to tomorrow and I'm going to get my 20 minutes of purposeful movement done today. That's great time management. Just because you bumped your workout doesn't mean that you're not time managing well. It means I looked at an opportunity in the week when today felt impossible and I figured it out.
That's exactly what I was hoping our members and clients can hear that point. Yes. And something as simple as we tell them all the time, right? Like, you look at your workout, you were so excited about that 35-minute planned workout, and it's like, okay, now I only have 15 minutes because maybe your kid took a little bit longer to go down for a nap, right? So now you have way less time. It doesn't mean that I'm just not going to do anything. I'm just going to be okay with the 15 minutes that I have left, and I'm still going to do something. It's saying I don't have time to do that planned workout. Well, I do have time to do our workout. It might not be the 35-minute planned workout.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
Just
And that
perspective.
it touches right back on something over nothing, another guiding principle, right? So there's so many beautiful ways to approach time management from the guiding principles that allow you to sort of just see what you're trying to tackle from a slightly different angle. And I think when we know that we have options, our anxiety goes right down.
Absolutely. Awesome.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you can think of in terms of time management you want to touch on for?
Yeah. This is kind of a general thing. I think we've touched on it a little bit, but I would remind people that you're allowed to ask for help. I think for many individuals, they look at time management, especially if you're a woman and you think it's all on me. It's got to be me. I've got to be the one to do it, and that's it. That's all. We might reach out to a mom. We might reach out to a best friend. We might not. And so there's opportunity to look at some of these tasks and not necessarily even ask to delegate, but to say, could I have help? Right? I think people really need and deserve that reminder regularly that we're allowed to ask for help, whether that's a paid service or a friend or a close one who is, willing to say, I'd love to take some load off of you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good reminder.
Yeah. And I think too, the last thing that I'll say, unless you've got some other questions, is just a reminder that like some things can be eliminated from your agenda as well, right? I think for many, many people, we get into a routine or a rut where we don't question what we're doing, and we might not understand or see where things are either frivolous or redundant, and both can be deadly to our belief about how well we are time managing things, right? So if I have a belief that dishes need to get done every single day, and that's the reason I'm not getting my workout in, my belief system is holding me back from getting things done, right? So we want to challenge what we've put or plotted in our actual day as a task that we think, we dig our heels in and feel responsible for, and ask ourselves, I don't know what would happen if I only did dishes every 2 or 3 days. How terrible, would that be if I could free up some time to get those other things done that are truly important to me? So again, creating opportunities for ourselves.
That's hilarious you said that, because I'm just going to share my story with people that it might kind of hit home. I'm the type of person, I've always been the type of person that has to either have a spotless home, all the to-do list is checked off before I can do something kind of for myself, right? It's like,
Mhm.
well, I can't go do my workout unless the dishes are done, the house is vacuumed, it's like my home has to be clean before my brain can focus. And then I slowly started to be like, well, what happens? Like, what would happen if I just left a little bit of that task? So instead of doing it all at once, like that all or nothing, right? Instead of just leaving the house a complete shit show, I was like, okay, I'm gonna leave just this corner of the house a shit show and everything else will be clean. I'll go do my workout. How did I feel? And you kind of just slowly chip away, and then eventually you're right. The world is exactly the same, and everything's okay, and we just continue with our day. So it's a really good reminder, and it definitely works.
Yeah. Were you that kind of student too, or you couldn't study unless things were, yeah.
Always, my
Okay.
like everything has to be. My
Yeah,
house had to, like, I was living in college with 5 girls, and the house had to be spotless before I can sit in my room and study. Like, I was
I get it.
everything to be clear. Yeah.
I
Anyways, we're
empathize.
learning
Well,
as an
I
adult.
love I love what you did there too, where you're like, I'm not gonna go crazy, but I am gonna let one corner be bonkers.
Yeah.
Which is a really like kind way to ease yourself into a new way of approaching things.
Right. Because doing it all at once kind of would have
Yeah,
probably not felt so great.
not so much.
Yeah. Awesome.
Love
That was
that.
really, really good tip. And I'm sure a lot of people will feel either what I felt or what you said for sure.
Love it.
If you're done, I've got a little tip that I've been doing lately. I mean, I clearly said I've been doing a few things, but this is what's been working for me. So, I've been I asked myself kind of what's one or two really simple things that make me feel my absolute best. Like, you can take this in two directions. So I wrote two things. I'll give you guys some examples in a second that I absolutely love to do that make me feel alive, energized, and awake. But like when I say simple, I mean simple. Like I'm not saying workout, I'm not saying meal prep. Yes, those things make me feel happy and great, but they're not simple, simple, simple. I mean like washing my face or drinking a cup of water in the morning, like really simple things. I'm trying to I have a few more examples. Um, what are some other ones? Drinking your coffee outside, getting dressed, even though you know you're not leaving the house today. Like simple. Okay. So I picked two, and I've been doing them every single day. This is something that it doesn't even feel like I have to do necessarily 80% of them. And sometimes I do, but I've been doing it every single day. And it just makes you feel like you're already so accomplished and alive, even though it took you 5 seconds. It's not overwhelming. It becomes that habit, that routine. And then when they don't give me that feeling anymore, I pick two different things. And
Cool.
it's just kind of a way to kickstart my day. Like it's always like the make your bed when you start your day type thing. But I'm not so much, I don't care so much about that one anymore. So I've switched to drinking my water and washing my face as soon as I wake up. Those have been my must do's. I don't
Oh,
know. I just something I've been sticking with me, and I want to just share that with other people and give it a go. I'm sure we're all doing some form of it, but stick with the same two. Just tell you need to change. That's what I've been noticing.
I love that. And I would imagine that there are some people who are not doing those things, and I think your tip will be revolutionary.
It's true. It just makes you
Yeah.
feel, yeah, so good about yourself. Like you said, give yourself a few seconds, and then start tackling other things that might not be so simple.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Cool. Okay, so we'll wrap things up there. This is a huge conversation for a lot of people that I know is going to benefit from. So please screenshot from whatever you're listening, share it to your social media platforms, and tag us in your stories on your social media. Thanks for listening, and we'll hear from you guys next week.